Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today I have great news for you guys. The new Pariah Nexus mission pack has been revealed. The chapter-approved missions are coming. And I'm glad to announce that after looking through them and reading the rules very carefully and analyzing them, it's looking pretty good for the Aeldari. That's right, guys, and not only is it looking good, but it's actually looking like some of the best mission rules that GW has ever come out with. And you guys know me, I'm not one to praise GW unless they actually do something good. And, so far, based on the reveals, we don't know the whole picture yet, but so far, things are looking really awesome. So, I thought I would share with you guys my thoughts on the new missions and how they interact with our faction, specifically how they are going to make the Aeldari one of the strongest factions in the game once more. So, as a result, in today's video, we're going to be looking at the Pariah Nexus reveal in its entirety, including the new secret missions, objectives, and the emphasis on Battleline units, which is pretty awesome to see. And we're going to be analyzing why the Aeldari are going to absolutely dominate the new mission pack. So right off the bat, GW kind of laid out that Battleline units are going to have more importance in the new mission pack, which is great. A lot of Battleline units really didn't see that much importance, and it's good to see Battleline units start to, kind of have prominence again in the rules. And a lot of you guys out there might be worried about this because Eldar traditionally haven't always had the best Battleline units. But this edition, with the new point changes and so forth, which, now after seeing this reveal, make a lot of sense to me. And due to the fact that, GW wrote the rules for our Battleline units a little bit better this time around, I don't think we have anything to worry about. Our Battleline units are pretty solid. Both variants of Guardians are really effective, especially with this new Raise the Banners mission, which we will look at in just a second. And of course, Rapid Escalation allows us to come out of reserve on turn 1 with our Battleline. So that may not seem very, great with things like Guardian Defenders. Probably don't want to do that with them. But as some of you guys might have already caught on, if you have a Troop Master as your Warlord, you can actually have Quins as Battleline, and they can come out of reserve turn 1 and potentially wreak havoc on enemy infantry, which is pretty awesome. And I don't think you'll be doing it every single time, of course, but I do think it's something to keep in mind and something to definitely keep in your back pocket. So, having said that, GW revealed 2 primary missions for this mission pack, and those are the Raise Banners and Rapid Escalation. Raise Banners simply allows Battleline units to score a little bit of extra secondary points when they control an objective at the end of your turn. So your unit of Guardian Defenders on your home objective raises a banner on it. That gives you a secondary objective point, which, while that may not seem like a lot, can definitely help you max your secondary score even more. So, in most of the games you play, you're probably getting close to the max, but this will help you get even farther along and can definitely make up for some lost primary points, as our army typically isn't the best at doing that. Rapid Escalation, on the other hand, allows you to bring your Battleline units from reserve on turn 1 up to a certain points level. So being able to, in a Strike Force game, bring up to 200 points of your Battleline units in on turn 1 from Strategic Reserve can swing the tide of the battle very quickly. And like I said before, if you have a Troop Master as your Warlord, Harlequin units all of a sudden become Battleline, so that means you can have some pretty serious combat units charging on turn 1. In addition to some of the new mission rules, there are 3 new primary missions that they have basically said are going to be in the mission pack. Terraform is the one that they actually revealed to us. Now, honestly, just looking at this, to me, kind of seems the same as some of the other ones. It's basically a variation of Take and Hold, which, to be honest, the Eldar have never been quite good at, but it does allow for something a little bit interesting in the late game if you are able to prevent your opponent from terraforming objectives. So, if we look at the primary mission itself, it requires units to survive on the objective until the end of your opponent's turn or battle and be in control of it. So they get 4 points for each objective they control and 2 extra points if they terraformed it during the battle. And this occurs for each objective marker they have terraformed. So while at first it does seem that it's very, beneficial to units that can, sit on objectives and hold them, if you are able to sweep enemy units off the objective before they're able to terraform it, they're not going to be able to score their primaries as easily. Which is, again, something Eldar are very good at doing. We're very good at sweeping enemy units off objectives so they can't hold them, although we're not that good at holding them ourselves. So basically, while this on its, kind of face seems like something that's going to be really beneficial for primary scoring armies, it is really good also for armies that can deny primary because your opponent is going to be lured out onto those objectives early on and then can be swept very easily. In addition to the new primary missions, we are also going to have new secondary missions that, according to GW, are designed a little bit more clearly and, better. I don't know about that, but what I can tell you guys for a fact is that the secondary mission that has been revealed, Marked for Death, I should say, is probably one of the best secondary missions I have seen for the Aeldari in a long time. So essentially, this new secondary objective is a twist on Tempting Target. So instead of picking an objective for your opponent to get on, which, by the way, I didn't really like how Tempting Target was, kind of interacted with in the game. A lot of times there'd be turns where you draw it and it would just be pretty impossible to actually get. And as a result, it just wasn't that interactive. What I like about Marked for Death, however, is that your opponent, instead of picking an objective, picks 3 of their units, and you score points by destroying at least one of them by the end of your turn. Yes, that's right. It's a return to that classic 40k kill points, baby. You kill an enemy unit, you get some victory points, which is what I love. I always really liked that about 40k back in the day, and I was a little bit sad that that went away over the editions. I understand why it went away, but it's good to see at least a part of it return to the game here, which rewards players not for killing big stuff like tanks, not for killing, characters, but just for killing units, killing for the sake of killing for Kane himself. So I love seeing this. And of course, as we all know, guys, the Eldar are probably one of the best factions in the game at killing enemy units. And what I like about this secondary objective is it's really balanced and interactive, right? Your opponent has to pick 3 units, so chances are at least one of those units is going to be in a position in which it can be killed, which is pretty cool. So really exciting, and definitely exciting as an Eldar player to see a mission like this back in circulation. Now, the last thing GW revealed for the update is, of course, the secret missions. So these are things that are going to replace gambits, and to be real with you guys, gambits were not a good mechanic at all. A lot of the times they were simply unscorable, and even if you were losing the game pretty badly, there was no real reason to take a gambit because they were so hard to actually achieve. And because you were aware of what gambit your opponent picked, if they did in fact go for a gambit, it was very easy to prevent that from happening. So basically overall, impossible to score. And if you did pick a gambit and you were losing pretty bad, you probably ended up losing even worse by the end of the game. Secret missions, on the other hand, are a little bit more viable as far as scoring goes. And the greatest part about this is you keep the secret mission you pick hidden from your opponent. Your opponent doesn't know which one you have. And you get to pick it from, one of 4 secret missions that's available. So yes, your opponent can, of course, have a really good knowledge of these secret missions and what to do to stop each one of them. But because they're not able to know exactly which one you picked, it's going to be hard to prevent all of them from happening. And you guys know me, if there's one thing I love, it's mind games, and this is one of the biggest mind games I have ever seen introduced into 40k, and I absolutely love it. And I'm telling you guys, this secret mission thing is going to be a game changer for Eldar. 1, it scores primary victory points, which we absolutely struggle with. Now, the downside is, normally you're able to score up to 50 victory points from primary objectives. If you choose the secret mission, you score 20 points from that, so you cap out at 40 VP overall for your primary objectives. However, let me just remind you guys and just, go back in your memory banks and think of all the times you've lost games on primary and you've scored like maybe 15 primary points overall. Just think about that for a second. You're not going to score max points anyway in those games you're losing. You might as well go for a secret mission and score an extra 20 points. So instead of 15 extra points, you're scoring 35. That is a massive boost in victory points. It doesn't matter if you can score the max, right? A lot of times, the games we play, we don't really score max anyway. It's only a difference of 10 points. I can't tell you the amount of games I've played where I've played an exceptional game. I've scored all my secondaries and I've basically almost tabled my opponent by the end of the game. And I look at my scoreboard and there's a big fat 40 or 35 in primary. Right? I mean, it happens. Eldar aren't that great at scoring primary. So anything that can help us score more primary victory points is something we should absolutely cherish. Now, GW didn't only reveal that secret missions are going to be part of the game, but they also revealed some of what they are. And my God, again, they're very pro Aeldari. They're very pro our faction. So the two that they revealed are command insertion, which is absolutely probably one of the best things for us to score, and War of Attrition. Command insertion requires your warlord to control your opponent's home objective at the end of the battle, and we have some of the best warlords for doing this in the entire game. Especially with access to things like the Phoenix Gem, we are easily able to get on an objective because of our speed and, of course, survive on it because of the Phoenix Gem itself. So things like the Autarch Wayleaper, both having lone op and, of course, the Phoenix Gem make this very viable. War of Attrition, on the other hand, requires you to either destroy all enemy battle line units, which again, because we're an Eldar army, we are very good at killing things. That's something we could very easily do in a lot of matchups. Or if your opponent has too many battle line units or they're being very conservative with them so you can't kill all of them, you do have a couple of other options. One, either all of their battle line units are in their deployment zone. So basically, if their battle line units choose to hide all game, you're still going to be able to score this objective, which is really cool. It's kind of like a double-edged sword for your opponent, especially against a very fast and hard-hitting army like Eldar. Either your battle line units move out into the middle of the battlefield to do stuff and they get killed, thus scoring the secret mission, or they stay in your deployment zone and hide and you still score it. Now, the catch to this is you also have to have a battle line unit of your own in their deployment zone. So it's not that easy. You do need something in their deployment zone. But again, we have tons of units that can do this, right? Corsairs, small units of Corsair Void Reavers might be a really good option for this. And of course, Guardian Defenders and Storm Guardians can do it as well if they survive. And because they're faster, technically with a nice Fire and Fade and maybe a Phantasm, they can definitely get into that deployment zone. And like I said before, if you do have the Warlord being the Troop Master, you can also make Quinn units battle line. And Quinn units are very fast, especially in their transports, and can easily get onto the enemy deployment zone. Now, the other two secret missions GW revealed are Shatter Cohesion and Unbroken Wall. I think these are a bit harder for us to score in general, but they're still worth looking at. And in fact, we can take advantage of several of their ideas and key points. So Shatter Cohesion requires you to either table your opponent, which of course is very rare. You're probably not going to do that, but it does have some extra parameters. If you don't table your opponent, you can still score it. So basically you have to fulfill one of the following. All enemy units are below half strength, which is very possible, especially for a hard-hitting Eldar army. All enemy units are battle shocked. That one's going to be a little tough. You're probably not going to be able to do that very easily. Of course, unless you're playing Chaos Space Marines or something like that and your whole army revolves around battle shock. Or all enemy units are at least more than 3 inches away from all objective markers. So I think that last bit is actually very possible to do with an Eldar army because we hit so hard. We can easily pick off enemy units that are on objectives at the last couple turns of a game. Especially against smaller elite armies that by the end of the game are probably going to be pretty low on models. Unbroken Wall, on the other hand, is something we're probably never going to go for unless you're playing a Wraith-based army or something like that, which is really tough. Basically requires you to hold all 3 No Man's Lands objectives by the end of the game. Now, normally this would be kind of impossible to score, except if you go second. Because if you go second, this objective is actually going to score you a lot of victory points at the end of the game. And again, this plays into a strategy of wait until the last couple turns, destroy as many enemy units as possible, and then when your opponent is trying to desperately hold those last few objectives in no man's land, on your turn 5, last turn of the game, you come out, you destroy those units, and then you move on to the objectives yourself. And some of you might be thinking, well, Proxy Hammer, that's going to be really hard to do because we also not only have to destroy those enemy units, but we have to get on the objectives ourselves. But, guys, we're playing Eldar. We have things like Fire and Fade. We have units that, of course, can assault in, take the objective from our opponent with, close combat. Things like Harlequins, Howling Banshees, Striking Scorpions are all cheaper, and you can definitely do it with those units. But we also have units that shoot, or I should say move after shooting, like Shadow Specters, or perhaps even a unit of Swooping Hawks with Baharoth in it, right? Moving up the battlefield 20 inches, shooting at something with probably some help, and then moving 6 inches onto the objective themselves. Maybe even Fire and Fading another unit onto another no man's land objective. That, my friends, is something that is very doable, especially when you consider that units like, Baharoth and Swooping Hawks probably aren't going to die anytime soon unless you really make a big mistake. And also things like Wind Riders, or anything that you would want to Fire and Fade are typically pretty fast, or typically movement 14, so you can definitely get a unit from your own deployment zone into no man's land objectives as well on the last turn. So yeah, it may not be the mission that you want to pick all the time, but it definitely plays to your strengths. And let me just say one last thing real quick. Unbroken Wall is actually the keystone to Eldar being able to successfully and safely score command insertion. Now, a lot of you guys might be thinking, well, Proxy Hammer, what do you mean by that? Well, I mean this. It's a fact that if you have an Autarch Wayleaper in your list and you're going against somebody who knows what they're doing and is a little bit, smart, they will assume if you pick a secret mission that you're going to go for command insertion because it's an easy one to score for us. So this is what you do. You pretend you're going for command insertion. You move your Autarch Wayleaper up the battlefield into a position where they could score command insertion. Your opponent is going to withdraw their units, most likely, in order to protect that home objective. And that is when you get them. If you're going second, that is, right? And as soon as they start moving their units to protect their home objective in the last turn, you simply put a 180 on them. Move your units onto the mid objectives, and then guess what? Your secret mission was Unbroken Wall all along. And that, my friends, is why I love the secret missions, because you can play these mind games with your opponent, and you can move your models in such a way and position and stage them in such a way to kind of trick your opponent into thinking you're going to go for something. And then you can go for something completely opposite because you're Eldar, and you have those stratagems that allow you to basically move anywhere you want on the battlefield. So why are the Aeldari going to be absolutely dominant in the new mission pack? Well, simply what I just said. Basically, they have the ability to move all over the battlefield, and that is going to be a huge strength for the secret missions. And also, of course, our Battleline units are rather good at objective play. If you look at the new missions that are going to, score you a little bit of extra secondary points or mission rules, they do revolve around Battleline units. And we have some of the best Battleline units in the entire game as well. Now, I know that's controversial, but if you compare them to other Battleline units of other armies, I think they're some of the best. I think we're at least in the top 5 in that category, and that's because our Battleline units offer some great utility as well. Guardian Defenders are great at holding backfield objectives. If you get a mission rule like Raise the Banners, your Guardian Defenders and Storm Guardians are able to score you a little bit more VP in your secondary game, and Corsairs can also grab you objectives very early because of their scout move. Just imagine getting turn 1 and you have a couple of units of Corsairs in your army and you just grab 2 objectives early, raise banners on them, and boom, you have 2 secondary objective points in the bag. And that is, of course, in addition to any other secondary objectives that they could score that turn as well. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of deploy teleport homer or, something like that as well in the mission pack. So, having a unit, a small unit worth 70 points that can get onto an objective early and score for you big is money in the bank. And yes, for those of you guys out there wondering, I do think Corsair Void Reavers are going to make a substantial return in competitive play, at least 1 or 2 units of them in most Eldar lists. And the other thing is, we're fantastic at scoring secondary objectives. And we always were, right? But the secondary objectives this time around, at least right now, of course we haven't seen the full set of secondaries yet, but Marked for Death is very easy for us to score. And if the rest of the secondaries kind of follow suit, our army is going to be still one of the best armies at scoring secondary. And of course, we have a better primary game as of now with the new secret missions. The secret missions, of course, being a massive boost to our primary objective game, which kind of shores up a big weakness of ours. And in tough battles that aren't going your way, there are several secret missions in our army that are well equipped to be scored easily. 3 out of 4 of the secret missions are very favorable to our playstyle, with the easiest seemingly being command assertion. And again, like I said, you can use this fact to leverage a nice Unbroken Wall secret mission at the end of the game. And I do think it's really funny that both command insertion and Unbroken Wall work so well together for the Aeldari. Now, there is one in there that I think is going to be pretty hard to score on, but it is matchup dependent. So there could be matchups where it's very easy, and then there could be matchups where it's a little harder. And of course, I'm talking about War of Attrition, right? Getting your own Battleline unit into the enemy deployment zone, and then on top of that, making sure all enemy Battleline units are either destroyed or in their own deployment zone, which, again, your opponent seeing that you're going to move a Battleline unit into their deployment zone is probably thinking, oh, I wonder what secondary mission they went for. And they're just going to move their Battleline unit out of their deployment zone. And, of course, if you don't go second, you might actually lose that. So I think that's probably one of the hardest to achieve. But again, if you can kill all the enemy Battleline units, no problem. And I think overall, I'm just loving the secret missions. Ever since this was announced, I've been wanting to do a video on this and talk to you guys about this. And I can't wait to play it. I'm almost not even wanting to play the Leviathan missions anymore because I think this is so cool. But yeah, it's going to be great, guys. I think Aeldari are going to be absolutely dominant in this new mission pack. I can't wait to dive into it. And, June or July can't come early enough. So in conclusion, once again, I'm really excited for Pariah Nexus in a way that I've really never been about previous expansions. Every time a new expansion comes out, I'm kind of iffy about it. I'm like, okay, it's basically the same thing, just reworded, repackaged, whatever, right? Which has basically been the missions up until now. In 9th edition, whether you're talking about Arcs of Omen or Nephilim or what have you, all of the secondaries and, primary mission rules and stuff like that, they all felt like the same versions of themselves, just slightly reworded and with different names. I'm glad GW broke the mold on that, and the new missions actually add a lot of depth and flexibility that play right into our strengths as a faction. Which is really awesome to see. We haven't seen this in a long time where, the mission rules actually do pretty much favor faster, more hard-hitting armies and more damage dealing, right? A lot of the mission rules up until now have favored armies that, quite frankly, just sit on the circles and survive. So it's good to see a little bit of variation in the new missions. All right, everybody, that's going to be the end of today's recap on the GW reveal. I'm very excited for it. I think it benefits the Eldar in some massive ways, and I'm excited to play it coming up. But until then, we do have some videos coming out later this week. I was, in fact, able to get a game in against Green Tide today, which was interesting, and I have some good news for you guys to share and, some of my strategies and tactics for dealing with it, which a lot of you guys will probably find helpful. So I'll have a video out on that within the next couple of days. So stay tuned, and once again, I would also like to take this time to thank all of my Patrons and supporters for continuing to support the channel as the year goes by. And by the way, the channel's been alive for well over a year and a half now, and I have to say I'm really excited at the community we have built together. So thank you so much for that. And if you do want to help support the channel, I do have free trials on my Patreon activated, which will give you permanent access to our Discord community, which is a community of Eldar players and enthusiasts who love talking about strategy, tactics, and of course hobbying. And I will leave the link for that in the description below. And once again, it's totally free. We really just want to have you in the Discord participating and adding your Eldar expertise to the community. I'm also an Amazon affiliate and have a channel store page, so if you want to grab some discounted Eldar miniatures on Amazon or some Eldar-inspired apparel on the channel store page, I will leave the links for those in the description as well. All right, everybody, that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you once again, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.